Welcome again in a new video. Our journey today will transport us to Europe during the Middle Ages, specifically to France, within a devout family in the French countryside. This family, the Darcs, earned their livelihood through farming. Among them grew a delicate and devout young girl, deeply passionate about the teachings of Christ. Her name was Joan, and she would grow up to become a renowned figure across France and England. This young girl was driven not only by her faith, but also by a fervent love for her country and a fierce determination to defend it against the English invaders. Come, my friends, let us delve into the life of this courageous maiden. Join me after the intro as we explore the remarkable story of Joan of Arc. Early life and background. Joan of Arc, known in French as Jeanne d'Arc, was born around January 6, 1412, in the small village of Domremy, located in the Duchy of Bar in northeastern France. Her parents, Jacques d'Arc and Isabelle Romy, were peasants who owned a small farm. Joan was the youngest of 5 children, with 3 older brothers, Jacquemin, Jean, and Pierre, and 1 older sister, Catherine. Despite their modest means, the d'Arc family was well respected in their community. Joan's childhood was marked by the simplicity and hardship typical of peasant life during the 100 Years' War. She was expected to help with household chores and farm work from a young age. Her responsibilities included tending to the family's livestock, helping with the harvest, and spinning wool. Despite these duties, Joan found time to develop a deep connection to her Catholic faith, which was nurtured by her devout mother, Isabelle. Isabelle taught Joan essential prayers such as the Our Father, Hail Mary, and the Creed, and instilled in her a strong sense of piety. The early 15th century was a tumultuous period for France, as the nation was embroiled in the protracted and devastating 100 Years' War with England. The war had a profound impact on the daily lives of the French people, including those in Domremy. The village was located in a contested region, frequently threatened by raiding parties from the Anglo-Burgundian alliance. This constant state of insecurity and conflict influenced Joan's worldview and fueled her desire for peace and justice. Divine visions. At the age of 13, Joan began experiencing mystical visions and hearing voices that she believed were sent by God. She first encountered these divine manifestations in her father's garden, where she saw a dazzling light and heard the voice of Saint Michael the Archangel. Over time, she also heard the voices of Saint Catherine of Alexandria and Saint Margaret of Antioch. Joan described these saints as beautiful and benevolent, and they often appeared to her in a radiant light. The voices initially provided Joan with guidance on maintaining her piety and devotion, urging her to attend church regularly, live a virtuous life, and uphold her faith. As Joan grew older, the messages became more specific and urgent. The voices instructed her to support Charles VII, the Dauphin of France, and to help drive the English invaders from French soil. They revealed that Joan had been chosen by God for a special mission, to save France from its enemies and ensure the coronation of Charles VII as the rightful king. Joan was initially hesitant and unsure about how to act on the divine instructions she received. She was a young, uneducated peasant girl, and the idea of leading a military campaign seemed impossible. However, the voices persisted, providing her with detailed guidance and assurances of divine support. Joan's unwavering faith and conviction eventually overcame her doubts, and she became determined to fulfill her divine mission. The journey to Shinan. In early 1428, Joan left her village and traveled to the nearby town of Vaucouleurs, seeking an audience with Robert de Baudricourt, the local garrison commander. Joan's request to meet Charles VII and her claims of divine visions were met with skepticism and ridicule. Baudricourt initially dismissed her as a naive and deluded peasant girl. However, Joan's unwavering determination, combined with her charismatic presence and the miraculous signs she claimed to receive, eventually convinced Baudricourt to reconsider. Joan made multiple trips to Vaucouleurs over several months, each time pleading her case with greater urgency and conviction. She gained the support of several local villagers who were inspired by her faith and determination. Their testimonies and Joan's persistent appeals finally persuaded Baudricourt to provide her with an escort to the court of Charles VII in Shinan. He arranged for her to travel with a small group of soldiers, providing her with a horse and men's clothing for protection. Joan's journey to Shinan in March 1429 was fraught with danger, as she and her escort had to navigate through war-torn territories and evade enemy patrols. The journey took several days, and Joan's courage and resilience were tested at every turn. Despite the hardships, Joan remained steadfast in her mission, drawing strength from her faith and the voices that guided her. Upon arriving at Shinan, Joan had to navigate the court's intrigue and skepticism. She was initially kept waiting for several days before being granted an audience with Charles VII. During their first meeting, Joan was able to identify Charles despite his attempt to disguise himself among his courtiers. This remarkable feat, along with her detailed revelations about Charles's private prayers, persuaded him of her divine mission. Charles, impressed by Joan's conviction and the apparent divine endorsement, decided to test her further by subjecting her to an ecclesiastical examination. The Siege of Orléans. With Charles's support, Joan was outfitted with armor and given a banner bearing the names Jesus and Mary. She was also provided with a small force of men-at-arms and placed under the command of experienced military leaders such as Jean de Dunois and Gilles de Reims. Joan's leadership and her devout faith inspired the French soldiers, many of whom saw her as a messenger from God. Her presence brought hope to the beleaguered French forces, who had suffered a series of demoralizing defeats. Joan arrived at Orléans on April 29, 1429, where the French forces had been besieged by the English for several months. The city's defenders were demoralized and on the brink of surrender. Despite the dire situation, Joan's arrival reinvigorated the troops and the citizens of Orléans. She immediately began coordinating with the French commanders and planning a series of assaults on the English fortifications. Joan's presence on the battlefield was nothing short of inspirational. She led several assaults on the English fortifications, demonstrating remarkable bravery and tactical insight. Joan personally carried her banner into battle, rallying the troops and urging them to fight with renewed vigor. Her faith and determination played a crucial role in lifting the siege, which was achieved on May 8, 1429. This victory marked a turning point in the 100 Years' War and earned Joan the title Maid of Orléans. The road to Reims. Following the victory at Orléans, Joan urged Charles VII to proceed to Reims for his coronation. She led a series of campaigns to clear the path, capturing key towns such as Jargeau, Montserrat, and Beaugency. Joan's strategic acumen and inspirational leadership continued to bolster French morale. Her successes in these battles demonstrated her ability to inspire and lead troops, despite her lack of formal military training. The French forces entered Reims on July 16, 1429, and Charles VII was crowned king the following day in Reims Cathedral. Joan stood by his side, holding her banner high. The coronation marked a significant turning point in the Hundred Years' War, solidifying Charles's legitimacy and Joan's role as a divinely guided leader. This event also boosted the morale of the French people, who saw Joan as a symbol of hope and divine favor. Following the coronation, Joan continued to campaign for the liberation of France from English control. She urged Charles VII to pursue further military action to consolidate his power and reclaim additional territories. However, political and military challenges persisted, and not all of Joan's plans came to fruition. Despite these obstacles, her efforts significantly contributed to the eventual French victories that followed. Capture and trial. Despite her successes, Joan's fortunes began to wane. In May 1430, while defending the town of Compiègne against a Burgundian assault, Joan was captured during a retreat. She was taken prisoner by the Burgundians, who were allied with the English. Joan's capture was a significant blow to the French cause, and her enemies saw an opportunity to discredit her and undermine the legitimacy of Charles VII. Joan was initially held in various Burgundian strongholds before being transferred to English custody in November 1430. She was taken to Rouen, the heart of English-occupied Normandy, where her trial was to be held. The English intended to use Joan's trial as a means of discrediting her and demoralizing the French forces who had rallied around her. Joan was put on trial for charges including heresy, witchcraft, and cross-dressing for wearing male military attire. The trial, led by Bishop Pierre Cauchon, was a politically motivated effort to undermine Joan's influence and Charles VII's legitimacy. Despite Joan's articulate and steadfast defense, the trial was heavily biased against her. The judges, many of whom were English sympathizers, were determined to find her guilty regardless of the evidence. Joan faced intense questioning and psychological pressure, but she maintained her composure and consistently affirmed her divine mission. On May 30th, 1431, Joan of Arc was condemned to death. She was burned at the stake in the marketplace of Rouen. Joan's final words were a prayer, and she called upon the name of Jesus as the flames consumed her. She was just 19 years old. Joan's execution was intended to serve as a warning to others who might challenge the established order, but it ultimately solidified her status as a martyr and a symbol of resistance. Martyrdom and Legacy. Following her death, Joan's reputation as a martyr and a symbol of French resistance grew. In 1456, a retrial ordered by Pope Calixtus III exonerated Joan, declaring her a martyr who had been wrongfully condemned. Her family was restored to honor, and Joan's reputation was rehabilitated. The retrial was a significant step in acknowledging the injustice of her trial and execution. Joan of Arc was canonized as a saint by the Roman Catholic Church on May 16, 1920, by Pope Benedict XV. Her canonization recognized her as a model of faith and courage, and she became a symbol of French unity and national pride. Joan's sainthood was a testament to her enduring impact and the reverence with which she was held by the Catholic Church and the French people. Joan's life has inspired countless works of literature, art, and film. From Mark Twain's personal recollections of Joan of Arc to George Bernard Shaw's play St. Joan and Carl Theodor Dreyer's film The Passion of Joan of Arc, her story has resonated across centuries and cultures. Joan is often depicted as a symbol of unwavering faith, courage, and the fight for justice. Her legacy continues to inspire people around the world, serving as a reminder of the power of conviction and the impact one individual can have on history.